this story that's to be told, we need two things. First of all, we need to be in that integrated state of being. That means that state called Satchitananda, which is really when our street smarts and our intuitive abilities and our inherent oneness with all of life come together in an acute state of awareness. And secondly, we need to remember that in this story, as in most of the stories, all the elements it contains are representations of aspects of our self. This is a story about an old couple. They were very God-conscious and they were very pious, but they had had an only son who was called Hanina. But Hanina had left the family home at an early age to seek his fortune in the world, and after his adventures he'd settled in a place somewhat distant from his home. But one day Hanina received a message from his father: "Please come home." When Hanina received that message, he recognized the urgency of it. So he hastened back to his family home to find his mother and father on their deathbed. The father embraced Hanina and said, "Your mother and I have had a good life together, and we have taught you to respect and honor the God within you. We are parting, and it's been ordained that we part together. But I ask this of you: after the required state of mourning, go to the marketplace and buy the first thing that is offered to you, no matter what its price, and take care of it very well, because it will bring you fortune." So, of course, the mother and father, within a few short hours, passed away, and there was that required period of mourning. But, heeding what his father had said to him, Hanina, after this, went straight to the marketplace, wondering what kind of adventure he was going to meet. But he hadn't gone too far down the road in the main pathway street leading to this square when he was approached by an old man carrying a box. And the old man said, "Buy this box and find your fortune." Well, Hanina asked the old man, because it was just a square box with a little ornate pattern on the top. So Hanina asked the old man, "What is inside the box?" And the old man replied, "This is for he who purchases it to discover for himself." "How much do you want for it?" said Hanina. And the old man said, 1,000 gold pieces. Well, Hanina was very taken back. This was all the money that he had. But he remembered his father's request, and he paid out the money and took the box. When he went back to his home and was greeted by his wife, they sat down to an evening meal together, and after the evening meal they took out the box. When Hanina opened the box, inside was another box, almost identical to the outer, with the same pattern embossed in its lid. But when they opened the second box, to their very great surprise, out hopped a frog. The little frog jumped around the table in great delight. To be free, it would seem. And then Hanina's wife bought food for the frog, which it gobbled with great gusto. Well, from that moment, it was found that the frog was insatiable. It ate everything that it was given. And as it ate, it grew bigger and bigger and bigger. And it got to the stage, after a few weeks, the frog had eaten Hanina and his wife out of house and home. They had virtually nothing left to sell. They were going without food themselves to feed the frog, which had now grown so large it was as big as a man. So Hanina's wife got desperate. Her belly was grumbling. They had not enough food to eat because they were feeding the frog. When suddenly she burst out crying. And, to her very great surprise, in a very husky, human voice, the frog spoke and said, "You have been so dedicated to my care. I'm now going to fulfill whatever wish it is that you have." Well, for Hanina's wife, the thing that blurted out of her mouth because her belly was grumbling was food. And there was a basket of food provided. And then the frog turned to Hanina and said, "What is your wish?" And Hanina had the thought, if this frog can produce miracles, then it must also be knowledgeable and wise. So Hanina said to the frog, "I want to know all that you know. Teach me." So from that moment on, the frog began to impart knowledge to Hanina in a very strange way. The frog would write down on pieces of paper and then give them to Hanina to eat. Very soon, Hanina had the knowledge and wisdom of an ancient, a sage. He knew the language of the birds and the animals. He knew the nuances of beings in all their manifestations. He began to be sought after as a sage and a teacher. And after some time, the frog said to Hanina and his wife, "It is time for me to give you my final gift. You have dedicated yourself, fulfilled your father's wishes to me. Come with me. Bring a wagon." So, with the frog loping in that its very strange and cumbersome way because of its size, with Hanina and his wife following with their wagon, they went into the forest. And when they arrived in the forest, the frog began to call, croak as a frog would do. But Hanina was able to translate what the frog was saying. And the frog was saying, "Come one, come all, bring gifts, whatever it is that you have to bring. Jewels, herbs, gems, whatever gift you have to give, bring them." So to Hanina and his wife's very great surprise, there, out of the forest, came every form of creature that you could imagine. Creatures that crawled, creatures that flew, birds, bringing gifts of one kind or another, laying them at the feet of Hanina and his wife. And then the frog said, "Now it is time for me to leave you." But Hanina couldn't help himself. He said, well, before you go, can't you tell us who you really are?" And the frog said, "I am the son of Adam and Lilith, and I can take any form." With that, the frog began to diminish, growing smaller and smaller and smaller, until it became the size of an ordinary frog. That little frog hopped off and jumped in a stream nearby. But for the rest of their lives, Hanina and his wife gave of the largesse that they'd received. They were sought after, not only for those things that they gave in terms of food and lodging and care and nurturing, but for the wisdom that they had gleaned and gained from this experience. All of the elements of this story are representations of aspects of our self. So it can be asked, what is the frog to you? What is it that you've discovered when you seceded, when you obeyed, if you can use that word, to what we point to when we point to here? When we say to ourselves, I'm no longer the boss, there's something greater than my mind and my mind's ability to figure things out, make things the way I want them to be. Isn't that when we got the box and opened it? But what does the frog represent for us? What has it brought for you? In what form has it taken? Sure, we recognized that in doing so, we not only had to feed the frog, acknowledge it, nurture whatever it was that we discovered, but we grew lean. We went hungry. We starved ourselves of fulfilling the desires that were there when we were prior to opening our box. So we did become hungry. We didn't fulfill those desires and wants and needs, succumb to those vices, but simply asked, what is that frog for you? How has it manifested in our life? It's real, we know that. Frog is a frog is a frog. Thank you.